Welcome everyone, and we are going to continue off with our Women in Engineering conversations. Today we have another female engineer who is going to talk about both her education and her engineering career. I won't talk too much because sometimes I do that a little too much, so I'll just let her introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Caritta. I am currently in Connecticut in the US. So by day, I am a civil engineer, and then every other time, I am an entrepreneur and content creator online.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot you're doing both day and any time outside of your day job. Goodness, what got you into STEM or even into engineering? Was it like maybe some subject, some teacher, or maybe you had a role model or a mentor? What got you into STEM?
So in my junior year of high school, this was in my history class, we had to do a project where we designed one of the tenement shaped buildings that were in New York City around like the 1920s. And so I'm very like creative with my hands. And so I
Okay.
started drawing it out and I got like very interested in it. And so by the time we submitted our project, my teacher was like, "Oh, Caritta, you should look into structural engineering." And so I went home that day and I went on Google and I started looking up, oh, what is structural engineering? And then I saw like all these fancy buildings in Dubai, like, the skyscrapers and their nice hotels and all of that. And I was like, wait, I actually want to design something like that. I want to get involved in whatever this is. And so I looked further into it and I realized that the civil engineering basically is what contains structural engineering, transportation engineering, geotechnical, and all of that. And so when I went to college, that's what I studied. So in 12th grade, funny enough, I actually thought that engineering was just people in sweatshops and manufacturing and all of that stuff. I wasn't aware that there was actually a design portion of it. And so my senior year in high school, I took a CAD design class and we had to bring in an object to class and basically reverse engineer it. And so I brought in my camera and I took it apart to see like what.
I hope it wasn't an expensive camera.
I took it apart to see like what the components of it were, and so from there we had to design it in a design software. So we had to take the different parts. Well, I had to take the different parts that make up the camera and design it through a software on the computer. And so that's when I realized that, okay, maybe engineering is not just like sweatshops and all of that. You can actually get creative with it. And if you're someone who is creative, yes, you can do the math, but then you can also basically use both the left and right side of your brain. So that's how it all started.
Your first building was from a history class. I was expecting probably that to be like a STEM or a design-based class, but it was a history class that got you to like, okay, let's go and do some more exploration. And I think most people would do history and are looking at maybe historical figures, but there's more to history than just like the people. Sometimes it's the buildings, materials that have been used for buildings throughout a certain period. So I feel like that's really an interesting perspective into engineering.
Yeah, and I never really, now that you mentioned it, I never really like thought it out through completely. Because I remember in that same history class, we took a field trip to New York to one of the areas that the tenement buildings were at. And I never really thought about it in the sense of, yes, it's history, but it's still like, this is all, engineering was part of it as well. So
I guess, what do you think is your most important project you have worked on till date and why?
Okay, I would say it's an interchange project that I worked on. So it's basically a highway design project where where we were demolishing an exit ramp and making it into a left exit, because on that ramp there's typically a lot of traffic congestion there, because it's just one lane that brings you from the main highway into the next town across from a bridge. And so that project really helped me understand the design elements in transportation engineering and design, as well as not only looking at, not just focusing on whatever it is I'm designing, but also being able to look at the impact that the design is making on our outside world. And so if we're designing a highway, or we're going to demolish a bridge or an exit ramp, we need to look at, okay, are there beaver dams along the side of the highway that we need to take into consideration? Are there utility poles that we need to look at? Are there, what's going on underneath the surface of the existing pavement? We also need to look at just like the traffic, looking at traffic counts in general, people's patterns in terms of transportation. How much delay are we going to cause people who are traveling to work and back? It's just like so many different factors that you have to look at, that immediately when you start the design, you don't think about until the design is progressing. And so I think that project was one of my, I think it was one of the, I actually enjoyed that project because it expanded my thinking, and it allowed me to learn a lot about the discipline that I'm in. So
that sounds like something, a very interesting project. So getting this high of this project, what do you think so far has been your greatest disappointment as an engineer? You can look at this from the perspective of being a female engineer. And what do you think you would, or how have you changed that disappointment?
Okay. In terms of disappointment, I wouldn't necessarily say that I've experienced some disappointment. I feel like I've been in a space of learning more in the work that I'm doing. So I graduated from college about 4 years ago now. And so since I graduated up until now, it's been more of learning more about the discipline and building mentorship, so that way I'm able to continue to learn more and continue to grow in the field that I'm in. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I've had any disappointment so far, by the grace of God, because what I wanted to do in college is essentially what I'm doing now through my work. So I appreciate that a lot. So yeah.
But do you think there's anything that you have noticed in the field of engineering that you feel, okay, we need to change something here, or something needs to change?
So I would say, in terms of it being predominantly male, I would say that we definitely need more female engineers in the STEM field. So at my workplace, I would say the ratio of female to male engineers is probably like 50-50. But there are some places where it's like increasingly, like you can definitely tell that, yeah, this is just male dominated, and it's old white men dominated. So yeah, we definitely need more minorities, just so that there's like different perspectives when it comes to the work that we do. So for me, one thing that I had to learn, even with there being like an almost equal ratio, is that being minority, or being a woman, a Black woman in STEM, sometimes I feel that I am undermined, like with the work that I do. There was one particular situation where I was doing the work that I needed to do correctly. My supervisor that I was working with, like, she was checking in, I was checking in with her, and she was approving the work that I was doing, and it was good. But there was this her manager, he would tend to like undermine me, like when we have our meetings and I'm explaining like the design and what we're working on. He
Mhm.
will, I remember one time he looked at one of the plans and he was like, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Meanwhile, it wasn't really wrong. It's just like you didn't understand like the process that we took to get there. And so with that, and he was doing that on several occasions, and I wasn't
Mhm.
saying anything. So one thing that I learned to do is to actually speak up, because if not, it's gonna affect the work that I'm doing, and
Yeah.
eventually I'm not gonna do certain things because of how what this person is gonna have to say about it. And so I spoke to
Mm.
my supervisor about it, and she asked if like she should speak to him or if I wanted to speak to him. And so I ended up going to speak with him about it. So I said, hey, this is what you did, and this is how it came off, or this is how it made me feel like here at work. And so he said that he didn't realize the impact of what he was doing, but we came to a understanding that yeah, it's not okay for you to do certain things, or you need to be like mindful about just how you talk and how you interact with people in general. And so I'm glad that I did not avoid that conflict and we actually spoke about it, because from there he basically started doing things differently. And so
Okay.
if there was a question he had about something, instead of assuming that I don't know what I'm doing, he will ask me, okay, so like how did you get here, or what is the process that we're taking to get to this point. And so I feel like it's very important for women and minority, just anyone actually in general. Um, Actually, no. Let me rephrase that. Not anyone in general. If you're a woman or a minority in a uh, uh, predominant field with men, you need to learn to speak up, express like your concerns and things that you think your coworkers can do to make your work environment more like suitable for you. Like it's
Mhm.
okay to actually speak up. And so yeah, that was that experience with that, and I'm glad I spoke up about it and didn't let anyone continue to undermine me.
I think it's good to be assertive at work. I think most people shy away from it because they feel like they'll get into trouble. Build respect by doing that as well. They start to respect the work that you're doing as well. So I think it's essential basically.
Yeah.
To motivate and also to stay in your chosen field. This being engineering.
I would say my future goal to go back to Ghana and work on projects that have to do with roadway, highway, and drainage systems. I remember reading an article, this was probably like in college. I read an article about a little girl who traveled like several miles to get to school every day, and the
Mhm.
roads were just so bad. There's like gutters everywhere, that it's not like a proper drainage system going on. And so that really touched my heart, and that definitely keeps me going and keeps me motivated. So even if it's a project that I'm working on in Bridgeport, or a project that I'm working on in Stamford, or a smaller local town, I'm able to be intentional about it and learn whatever that I need to learn, because I know that later down the line I'm gonna use it for a project that I'm gonna do in Ghana. So I think that really keeps me going, to be able to take whatever it is that I'm working on now and um, being able to apply it later down the line back home. So
That's very good. I think Ghana roads do need do need a lot of revamping in some places. In a perfect world, you're told go to school, go to uni, get a job. But realistically, we know this is not always going to be the case. It won't always be that stepwise transition through those stages. What piece of advice would you give to young people who are probably either maybe getting out of high school or getting out of uni in terms of the job market?
hmm I would say not to be discouraged, because even for me, I didn't have like the typical okay, go to school for, well, I went to school for 4 years, and by the grace of God, I was able to graduate after the fourth year. But
Yeah.
my path was a little bit different compared to my classmates. So, for example, while everyone had internships in the summer, little girl over here did not have any internships. I was instead taking classes, and yeah, I didn't get the internship experience in engineering that I would have liked to have gotten.
Yeah.
Instead, my summers were spent babysitting, braiding hair, or working in retail. Meanwhile, other people were doing internships. And so my senior year, when it got time for me to graduate, there was one class that I was waiting to get in that I didn't get in, like, initially. And so I interviewed for an internship to have in that summer, so that way I can go back to finish up school and graduate in December and then get a full-time job. But then I ended up getting into the last class that I needed to get in to graduate in May. So by that time, I had already gotten the internship position, and so I thought, okay, when I graduate in May, I'll just do the internship, and then hopefully they'll hire me like at the end of it. And so I think 2 weeks before finals week, 2 weeks before graduation, the place that I got the internship for, they called me and they said, oh, the city ran out of money, so we had to take the position away. And so here I am graduating in 2 weeks, and I don't have a full-time job. And it's like, what am I gonna do? Because I got into the class, I was able to get ready to graduate in May. And so the week before finals week, I got a call from a company that I had submitted my resume to them back in February. I completely forgot that I sent them my resume. Because my professor, one of my professors that I was very close with, she emailed me. She said, "Hey, Caritta, this company is looking to hire people full time in May in transportation engineering," which was like the exact like position that I was looking for. And so she said, go ahead and send them your resume. So fine, I sent them my resume in February, and I completely forgot about it, because at the same time I was also applying for other full-time jobs, but I was just getting denied. Like, oh, I would travel like 40 minutes to an interview just to come back for them to say, oh, we chose somebody else. And so the week before finals, the place that I had given my resume to, they emailed me saying, oh, we received your resume in February, and we'd like to interview you for a full-time position. And so I went in. I remember it was a Wednesday during finals. I went in the afternoon, I think in the morning, I believe, and I had a final that day. So I drove 40 minutes off of campus to go to that interview, and that was like the smoothest interview ever. I say, like, Holy Spirit was definitely in that room with me. It felt like a conversation. They were just telling me like more about the work that they do there, asking me about my interests and what I've been learning in school, or what I would like to start working on. And basically everything that I wanted to work on in terms of transportation, engineering, and design was what that position was. And so at the end of the interview, they basically hired me on the spot. And so I went from someone who had no internships all 4 years of college. I'm babysitting, not getting any type of engineering experience nowhere. Babysitting, volunteering, doing all of that. Went from that to a whole full-time position in exactly what I wanted to do. I would say is literally all God. And so for someone who is not on the path that everyone is going on, one scripture that I know we quote it a lot, but I feel like you have to really make it personal, for me, was Jeremiah 29:11, which says, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." And so knowing that I have hope in God and He has a future for me, I was able to really meditate on that scripture and focus that, yes, right now I don't have anything. They took the internship away from me. Literally, I can't do this for myself. And so when I actually got the job, it's like, wow, this was really God, and I definitely could not do this on my own. So I would say to continue doing what it is that you need to be doing. Don't get discouraged. Don't become lax because things are not going the way that you want it to go, but continue to do whatever it is that you need to do to basically prepare you for when you get the opportunity. So for example, if I said, oh, I'm giving up because they took the internship away, I'm not gonna study, I'm just gonna sleep and live my life and do whatever because of that one internship that was taken away from me, not knowing that there's something else coming up after that. So continue to study, do what you need to do so that when the opportunity presents itself, you're prepared for it, and you are basically like the perfect suit for it. So
I think that's really good advice. Perfect opportunity will come, and it will come. It might be late, a few months, whatever, but then you realize that, oops, I'm not prepared. No internship to a full-time job, that's a miracle in itself.
Funny because I was banking on the internship. I was like, oh, I can get this, I can get a new camera for my YouTube channel, I can do this and that. Meanwhile, God is like, no.
I have something else for you. What you have to do on a daily basis, would you say that's monotonous, or you do have variations as time goes on?
I believe there is variation. Sometimes it can get monotonous because it's like, all right, you find yourself doing the same thing over and over again. It's like, until what end? But then again, the projects are so unique that you're not always doing the same thing every day. So for example, so for me, let's say a project is about to begin. The first step we'll do value engineering, which is basically assessing, okay, what are the existing conditions? Like, let's say it's a bridge rehab project, right? So we'll look at what are the existing conditions of the bridge. We'll look at previous plans of the bridge, or even the roadway, and see what was done previously. And then we'll go out into the field to assess it further. Like, okay, if we're taking it from the roadway perspective, we'll see, okay, how many lanes are there? What's the sight line? Is there enough? What are the posted speed limits? Is there enough sight line? Are there any curves, vertical or horizontal? Are there any guide rails in the way? Basically assessing what's existing and seeing where the problem lies, so that when we go back into the office, then we start looking into the design. So we have like our as-built plans is what they'll call it, like the existing plans and the data from survey, and then we'll basically start designing from there. And even with design, there's just so many factors that plays into it. Like, you'll design something up until 30%, and then it'll be like, oh, sorry, but you need 7 feet clearance off the edge of the road, and so now you have to go back and change your whole design just to meet that minimum requirement or get a design exception. And even as the project progresses, there's still like different changes that you have to make. How high to position the guide rail? Is there a utility pole in the way? It's just like so many different things that makes it interesting and not just like one-sided all the time. And I think it also helps that there are different projects throughout. So whether it's a state project, which is like a larger project, or a local project, there's always something that's coming up, like another can of worms to open and problems to resolve even during design. And I think where it starts to get a bit more mundane is when we have so one of the roles that I had was to we'll get design plans from another company who was designing the project, and so what we have to do is to basically check the work that they did and make sure that it meets the standards of the state.
Yes.
And so we'll basically look through all set of plans and put down markups if anything, and so that becomes like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing this for 3 weeks. I need something else to do. It sometimes gets really boring because it's like you know what you're checking for and you're just doing that over and over again. But yeah, I mean it's also important to check so that way the project gets built correctly. But at the same time, it seems like busy work that if you can.
I think it's probably just meeting standards, just to be safe. Everybody is safe, so standards are quite boring, but it's for everybody's safety.
Is to enjoy the quiet moments, because before, I'm the type of person, when I'm sitting there and I'm not doing anything, I can't take it. Like I need to be doing something.
Like you need more things to keep you busy.
When I first started working, I would literally be sitting there like, wait, I'm done reviewing this plan. What else can I do? And so I'm always asking for more work. And so one time my supervisor, she's like, Caritta, it's okay to enjoy the quiet moments, because when it gets busy, it gets busy. Like we'll literally be in the office until like 1 a.m. doing design work and stuff. So I'm learning how to appreciate the busy moments and the quiet moments as well.
What would you say are benefits or challenges that has come your way by being a female engineer, if any?
I think I touched on it before about the man that was basically like undermining my work, making it seem like I didn't know what I was doing. I feel like that can get challenging, especially if the issue is not addressed. And also I would say, when I first started working, like going to meetings were kind of awkward for me because I didn't know where to sit. Like, do I sit like at the table with everybody else who was talking, or do I sit in the back and take notes? So that I had to break off that mentality off of me that, oh, I need to be in the back all the time. So I remember another meeting that we went to, I went with my manager and like some of the upper management in our organization. I went with them and they said, yeah, sit here, because I was working on a project too. So yeah, sit at the table and share also what you've been working on. And so I think it's like a mindset thing where just really breaking off that mentality like, oh, I don't belong here, oh, I need to stay in the back because I'm a woman or because I'm a minority. But yeah, really just breaking that off and being more proactive and interacting in meetings and speaking up and all of that.
Just that first step. It's a good transition just to get yourself comfortable, basically.
Yes.
What advice would you give to young girls who want to pursue an engineering career in the future?
I would say to do it because I feel like it's not as difficult as it seems. I feel like most of the time when people hear engineering, they think that it's some mind-blowing thing that is, yeah, I would say to pursue it. First, I would definitely like do research in the engineering discipline that you want to go into. So for me, I didn't just say, oh, okay, these are nice fancy buildings in Dubai, let me go do architecture. I looked into like, okay, so what is the difference between architecture and civil engineering? Because there's a big difference. And so even under civil engineering, I had to do research to realize that, oh, okay, so it's transportation engineering, which is the roadway and infrastructure. There's structural engineering, which is the bridges and the buildings and all of that. There's geotechnical, which is the soils. There's environmental. There's just different there's different disciplines underneath that one engineering field. So I would definitely say, if that's something that you are interested in, do your research to know, okay, what's required of you. Maybe you might need to take exams after graduating. Maybe like research the job market as well. Maybe shadow someone who is in that field. I think that will definitely help to see like what the day-to-day job entails, so that way you know what you're getting yourself into. Because yeah, I feel like once you're in, it's difficult to get out, especially when, yeah.
What would you consider as your greatest achievement career-wise, engineering career-wise?
I would definitely say, so there's an organization that I work with called Girls for Technology, and it's geared towards getting young women, middle and high school students into STEM fields. And so we have Saturday academies where the students will come in and we'll go through like a STEM activity with them. And then we also have after school programs where we'll help them do their homework assignments, as well as an engineering based project. And so I find fulfillment in that, and I believe that's an accomplishment, because we're basically exposing the young woman to something that they probably thought was not a possibility for them. And so for me, I wish I had something like that earlier on, let's say in middle school, so that way I can prep my mind for what's coming like in college. And so yeah, definitely seeing how excited they are about the STEM fields like keeps me like motivated, keeps me going, and I feel like it's
the perception of engineers is that we are really boring and we are too serious. So I wanted to share any fun or exciting thing that you do outside of engineering.
Okay, so I do hair and video making outside of engineering. So actually, while I was in school, I started a YouTube channel doing DIY projects because I needed an outlet to be creative. Because in school, I was just like focused, math, focused, this, mechanics of materials, this and that. Like, it was very rigid. And so having a different avenue to express my creativity through, which was YouTube and just other DIY projects, helped me to maintain my sanity, for one. And so like as I started working, I realized that I had extra time like when I got home from work, and so I continued like more creative projects through my YouTube channel, and then I started a hair company on the side, so like natural textured hair extensions, and then I do a lot of like video content for my business page as well as my church. So I guess another fun thing, I consider it fun, is serving at church because of the people that I work with. They're fun to be around and all of that. And then traveling when I first started working, because we get paid a lot as engineers, and so I had extra money to do what I wanted. So definitely traveling. And then what else? Like just hanging out with friends, brunch, doing all of that stuff. Yeah. So we're not boring.
That would probably confuse lots of people. Like, okay, you do these two things together. So I think that's really great as well.
I think so.
And I feel like sometimes the skill sets that we build or we get in engineering is very applicable in other industries, but people don't even realize it as well.
Right. I feel like the perception of engineers being boring probably comes from university or college, because I remember in college my friends will be the ones that are like partying and doing all of that stuff, going out every weekend, and I'll be inside studying and being boring because of because of my major. Imagine me also partying and how am I gonna graduate and get a job after? Yeah, and so I think from they it seems like we're boring because of school, but then it's like once you graduate, you literally everyone is at work from 9 to 5, and so what you do
Right.
after, you have more room to do what you want and express yourself in that. And I definitely agree that the skills that we learn in engineering are transferable into like other areas of our lives as well.
Right. Thank you very much for your time, um, and also for sharing your experiences about your career journey as well as educational journey up until date. And I know somebody is definitely going to see this video and maybe get in touch with you to mentor them, or also just be inspired, which is what this day is about, International Women's Day in Engineering. And for me, I think the focus is for the different fields, to get more other females to know that, hey, you can do this. You can do this, and there are other women in these fields who are shaping those fields that they are in. So thank you very much.
Thank you.